Welcome to Notes to My Legal Self. Together, we explore topics of interest to in-house lawyers. We cover career, practice tips, leadership, the future of law, mental health, legal tech, and much, much more. Know someone who'd make a great guest? Let us know. Self-nominations are encouraged. They're an act of courage. Want to get the most from this conversation? Ask questions, comment, like, follow, say hello. In short, engage. Finally, have fun. In-house legal practice is a serious business, but you don't have to take yourself seriously. Let's begin. Here's your host, Olga Mack.
Well, hello everyone. It's happy Friday. I'm so excited to have this conversation today. I have a very special guest. She and I never met in person, but we've met in this place called LinkedIn many, many times. So I feel like I've known her for a long time and feel very connected and close to her, as I'm sure many of you as well. So without further ado, I would love to welcome Laurie to the show. Welcome to Notes to My Legal Self. So excited we're going to have this conversation now in public and give opportunity to folks to ask questions. Please introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you. I'm very excited. I'm also freaking out a little bit, but I'm very excited mostly. Thank you, Olga, for the opportunity. I really appreciate it. And hi, everyone. Thank you for making the time to be with us today. So I am Laurie. I work today at Manulife, which is John Hancock in the US. And for that company, and especially for the general counsel, I run everything related to the operations and the strategy for the law department, the compliance department, and our government relations function as well. So it's about, I think, about over 1,000 people worldwide across 3 continents. And my team, we are 10 today, 11 with me, and we are doing what people know as legal operation, but it's a bit larger than that, but legal operations mostly. So before that, I was a lawyer.
I love that. Okay. I have a term for this: excited and nervous at the same time. I call it nervous sided.
That's exactly that. You get it.
I love that place. I've been in that place many times. For me, it's a place of growth. So I hope it is for you.
I agree
too.
with that.
You've been aware before. I would love for you to share the scenic route you've taken to be where you are today.
Whew. So that's a fairly unusual career path, if you want to say it so. So I traditionally started as a lawyer. I studied law back in France. I'm a French business lawyer, corporate lawyer, and I practiced as such, started in a law firm. And I very quickly realized it was not for me, so I moved in-house, and I enjoyed it very much. I was hired to help opening the French office of a multinational company in the financial sector. And I've done so much more than law right at the beginning of my career. So that's really when I enjoyed seeing all the aspects outside of law as well of an actual business. So that's really my first step into that. So I started as a junior. I grew within the company. I ended up being the managing director of the French office. And a few months after my appointment, my promotion, I was offered to completely switch career and run a very massive, large project for the company. But I had to relocate to Canada. So that's why I arrived in Toronto, where I still am, by the way, in 2015. So I switched to legal international project management, and I enjoyed it very much as well. Also because, again, this is not just one thing that you have to do, but you have to see the big picture and to basically go through all the steps in order to go from point A to point B. So I really, really enjoyed that. And that actually gave me the opportunity to identify that within my previous employer, but I'm sure within many, many companies, some of our international processes were either inefficient or even broken, and nobody was taking care of that. There were so many inefficiencies, so many waste of time, of resources, so many things that were not logic or streamlined. So what I did is I pitched for the creation of this function within the company. I said, okay, you know what? I think I can fix a few things and allow you to make more money, allow you to save a lot of time. Just give me a chance, and I'm going to build a function. And I was allowed to do so. So that was extremely interesting, extremely rewarding. I continue to work worldwide with my teams on across the world. Also, extremely something I really enjoy as well. And yeah, that was basically it.
I love that you were allowed to fix some things.
Yeah, right.
That's a
That's
really
usually like, no, nothing's broken. What are you
no,
talking
that's
about?
even broken. That's even
Everything's
broken.
working well.
It's
No,
all
no, I was, but you'll see. I'm a data nerd, and when I need something, I document it and I prove A plus B that this is why it is happening and how we can actually fix it. So that's usually how I build my business cases, and it's most of the time, not always, but most of the time efficient.
yeah, reducing things to simple math actually is a really good
Yeah.
tactic. It really does work. It's when you get to multivariable calculus you lose people, but at simple math you're good. You actually get stuff done. Um,
Yeah.
I would love for you. You know, you clearly sort of saw problems, were allowed to fix them. Clearly, were carving your path, and went from sort of managing essentially risk, which is what lawyers and house do. You know, you add value to as well, but a lot of it is sort of managing various risks to addressing inefficiency. That's it. A very different job.
Yes, that's true. I think it's kind of and this is what I identify as the key personality trait of a legal ops person. You're usually a natural in finding those things, finding those inefficiencies, finding those ways that something can be improved or optimized. That's something you're naturally good at. And if you are a legal ops person, or not yet, but maybe consider becoming one, look at what you are in your own life. If you think about it in your day to day, you are like this. I mean, when when I prepare to register my kids to camps, I go through the whole brochure and I put my little post-its. I'm organized. I'm naturally organized. So that's the way I am as well, trying to find efficiencies. And again, here in Canada, we are alone. We don't have any support system, no family whatsoever. So we need to find ways for things to be very efficient and work very well because we have so many things to do, like many, many families. So that's a natural um, quality that I have and that I do apply to my job, to my day-to-day job. And that's actually something I feel we should all look into, because improving what we are naturally good at is where you shine. Actually, you don't need to fix what you're not good at. You need to fix and you need to train on what you're already good, so you can exponentially improve and grow.
Yeah, you can mitigate your vices or you can amplify your virtues.
Absolutely, become your better self, your best version of yourself.
Yeah, I find it more exciting to amplify my virtues.
I think so too. It's so much more rewarding.
Yes, I am with you. And I love how the tip of focusing what you normally do in your day-to-day life, and how you get there. Let's talk about sort of specifically where you are. You know, what do you do exactly? Like you can solve a lot of problems. Legal department and enterprise generally is not short of those. So what's your mandate? How would you describe it as succinctly in a few words? And how do you decide where to focus? What are your priorities for, a year or 3 or 5? Like, how do you think about that?
That's a very, very good question. Um, and when I actually joined, I didn't know. I just had no idea what I was doing. I felt so overwhelmed. So to answer your question about the mandate, that's actually also the first question I decided to answer. I decided to take a step back and um, assess, review what was my mandate. And my mandate was, and still is, to bring our operations to the next level and to globalize them. So within my company, when I joined, there was already a pre-existing legal ops company, and most of the people from that team are still within my team. And they've done an amazing job, but they were kind of lacking direction or guidance. So they started a bit of everything, which was great because when I arrived, I had a bit of foundation everywhere. But at the same time, it also means that we were not able to focus on something specifically. So my first step as I joined the company was to identify those priorities that you mentioned. And the way I did that is I basically delivered nothing. I decided to just take my time to understand exactly what were the expectations, where were the pain points, what could be optimized, and what was already working well, and therefore I didn't need to touch right away. So, and that takes time. I basically didn't deliver anything for like 3 months.
I'm going to talk about not delivering anything for 3 months. But I'm also, before we do that, I want to talk about, like, I never had the same job twice. And you seem very calm and collected about this whole thing. You started a new job you never had before. Not gonna do anything for three. I'm not gonna deliver anything for 3 months. But I can't be the only special person who sort of may get anxiety around that issue.
Oh yeah.
I'm
Are
just
you kidding
curious,
me?
how did it all feel? And how did you manage yourself? Because that's really kind of the key. And in the end of the day, like, managing Olga is a full-time job.
Yeah, I get you. Okay, so how did I manage to handle the stress and the anxiety? Well, I'm French, so a good bottle of wine helped a lot.
This is not only localized in French. I just assure you that I'm not French at all. And it's still a thing.
I get you. That's absolutely true. No, I think I let me find the best way to say that. I'm a strong believer that there is always a solution. It might not be obvious. It might not even feel possible that there is a solution, but there's always a solution. And the way that I personally work in order to find that solution is by taking a step back. And that's what I always try to do. Also because I'm very impatient, so by forcing myself to take a step back, that also allows me to take more time before taking action. And I found that for me, and I think it's a good tip for life in general. Taking this step back allows me to expand my vision, get a bigger picture, a bird eye view of the situation, and identify where I need to focus, where I need to go first. And that also gives me some control back, which is what I want because I'm a control freak. So if I don't control or have the feeling that I control, then I feel lost, then I feel overwhelmed, and then that's the end of the story. So taking the time to take this step back is my
Okay, okay. Now, I think control enthusiasm is prevalent, among us lawyers or in-house lawyers. That's not a it's a feature, not a bug. Um, there's a reason for that. So,
absolutely.
so it was exactly the way God intended. Um, and I love how you essentially lawyer yourself out of that pressure and anxiety, and you kind of did it real time. So thank you for that. So the 3 months that what were you doing in those first 3 months?
That,
Like, no delivery doesn't mean no actions, right?
oh yeah, absolutely not. I think that's the 3 months I worked the most in my life. Like the most extended period of time, I worked 14 to 16 hours a day. So when I say don't do anything, is don't deliver anything, because by rushing into delivering something, you can be almost 100% sure that it's not going to be aligned to the expectation of your stakeholders. So what I've done is, first I took that step back I've mentioned to reassess my mandate, where I needed to go, which kind of support was existing within the legal ops community, which is an amazing community for that. The support from that community is tremendous. You just ask and everybody is here to help you. So that's great. And second, what I did is I went on my what I call the discovery tour. So my discovery tour was me taking the time to meet one-on-one with my team first, obviously, so I could understand who they are, what they were doing, what their aspirations were, professionally and personally as well. Getting to get to this personal level was very important for me. Second, I extended that to my peers. So today I report to the GC, but many other people do as well. I think he had at the time maybe 8 other direct reports. So I met with each of them for like 2 hours workshop to understand again who they are, but also what they do, what their team was doing, potential interactions with other teams, and obviously pain points. What is it today that you cannot do or you would like to be able to do? And third, I expanded even further to stakeholders outside of my function, because you need partners. And for me, my key partners are finance, first and foremost, and procurement and IT and HR to some extent as well. So I met with those people, understanding the interaction between them and my team, and how we can align and streamline the way we work together, and how I can help them so they can help me. Uh, and this was amazing. I mean, I have a lot of great partnership with HR as well, but most importantly IT for the digital transformation that my needs to lead, and with finance for everything around strategic cost management. So that's really what I've done. So yeah, I did that for about 3 months.
I'm gonna dig a little deeper. So you mentioned sort of this personal, um, getting to know connection. You called it a personal level. Why? I mean, you know, why be personal? um,
Well, I mean, personal, I don't need to know all the nitty-gritty of their lives. That's obviously very personal. What I wanted to know is how we get along together, because what we have to do is important for the company, and I want to be sure that this is what you enjoy doing. I want to make sure that you are the right person in the right job to do that. I want you to be happy to come to work every morning, because if you are happy, you are going to give me 100% of yourself, and therefore you are going to make our team and me successful. So I need to know that you want to be here and you are happy where you are. And that actually led to me helping some of my inherited teammates to move to other teams, because the direction and the vision I had for the team is not exactly where they wanted to go. And that's fine. So what I did is I identified with them what they wanted to do, and I just help them move, like a lateral move to another team. And that's great because they are amazing in their new job. And I was able to recruit someone who was exactly what I needed in terms of skill set and profile, but also someone who wanted to be there 100%.
I love that. The other thing you mentioned is understanding interactions. I'm going to ask you, what does that mean, and why did you care?
Interactions, you mean with the stakeholders outside of
Yeah,
my function?
I think in context you mentioned it is like interactions among folks, how they,
Yeah.
what actually, my understanding, what happens on the ground, what actually happens when
Yeah,
they working, side by side, getting stuff done.
absolutely. So I don't think it's specific to my company. I think it's a lot of very big companies are like this. The 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 function of my GC was very much organized in silos. So when I met people during my discovery tour, I realized that sometimes the same thing is done twice or even 3 to 4 times sometimes, but in different ways. It's not consistent, it's not streamlined, and therefore there's a lot of time that is lost, a lot of efficiencies that are completely missed, and money as well, because time is money, right? So what I like to identify is these things specifically, because this is where you can add the most value quickly. That's a quick win, basically. Um, Typically, this one was not a quick window, but I identified that two teams working in two different silos were using two different systems to do exactly the same thing. And the funny part of it, or the irony of it, is that Team A started with product one, Team B started with product two, and then each team got unhappy with their product. So they basically switched, and now they are unhappy again. But come on, guys, why didn't you start by using the same system in the first place? Because it costs us twice the amount it should. We have zero leverage to negotiate the fees, and you're unhappy anyway. So let's consolidate. You're going to have more buying power and more power to get a better customer service and a better support. But yeah,
I was gonna ask you what you did, but and maybe you didn't fully flesh that out. So do share that. But I guess I will ask you, since we're friends, a harder question. The question is, how do you convince people to change? How do you convince them that what they've done before leads to unhappiness and they should therefore not repeat that because, definition of insanity.
yeah.
um, how do you, but like it theoretically makes sense, but telling somebody, that there are, logical, rational thoughts seemingly that feels normal to them somehow should change is actually hard. Everyone
Mhm.
wants change, but no one actually wants to change. And so, in that silos example, there's multiple systems, none of which brings happiness. How did you actually get to results of changing outcomes?
That's a that's a very hard question indeed. Thank you. Also, I
Sorry,
appreciate it. No,
I
no,
should
I
say Sam, but I
appreciate
didn't say
really.
I'm gonna go easy on you. That's how I love. I ask hard questions of people I love. If I'm silent, that means I don't care.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Okay, so you must like me very, very much. Uh,
Yes, indeed I
so
do.
the so the recipe for change management, well, I don't have it. There is no magic recipe. Um, I can tell you what I usually do, and that kind of work most of the time. So what I do is a few things. First, I communicate. I'm very transparent, and I always speak my mind. I try to be very polite and very respectful, of course, but I'm also a no BS person. So I tell you, it doesn't make sense. So can you explain to me why you did that in the first place? There may be a very strong business case to do things in a way that first appears completely irrational, but explain it to me. And when that person is unable to explain it to me, then that's the first step for that person to recognize that maybe there's something that can be done here. Um, Second, I also try to always present change together with what's in it for that person. Because I mean, and us as well, if anybody comes to us and say, okay, you know what, you have to change what you've been doing forever, and that's it, do it. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. I want to know what's in it for me. And that's the same for everybody. So I come presenting the change with how it's going to help them, how they will be able to do things better, faster, um, and easier, how it's going to ease their lives as well. Because lawyers, but professionals in general, they often complain that they don't have time. They are overwhelmed. There's too many things coming their way. So if I can come to you with a solution that is going to divide by two the time you spend doing task A, why wouldn't you want that?
Sometimes the answer is that because I don't want to change, and
That's
but
that's true
but
too.
I
You
love.
need to get the buy-in.
Yeah, but I do love the sort of, logical, evidentiary approach to convincing someone
Yeah,
to go from point A to B. I do find that lawyers are, they're creatures of precedent, but they're also creatures of evidence. And so I do think that that's a very compelling approach, and it works. It truly does. And when it doesn't, it's usually because I didn't put my evidence well enough. So I try again, and it usually works.
exactly.
It works the second
And
time.
collecting data as well is key. I feel you need to be able to demonstrate and to your point, them show evidence of how things work today, how they can work tomorrow, and what you need to go from A to B.
So as much as I love this conversation, we are coming to the end. We have a few more questions, and we have folks saying hello. And thank you, Kalash, for saying hello. I encourage folks to ask questions because if you're part of the conversation, you're going to get so much more out of it.
And I
Uh,
love questions.
I really love the focus on learning in the first 3 months and managing yourself so you can deliver something of value and prove that it's valuable to address processes systematically in an intentional way. Um, I know when I talk to a lot of legal ops, just like sort of software developers, they talk about roadmap, and it is a very useful tool from developers to make sure that you sort of have a vision that
Mhm.
you're building and hold yourself accountable, uh, uh, executing toward it. Um, do you have one, and what's on your roadmap? How do you think about it? What is sort of intellectual framework that you approach, and do you share it with your team, your larger team, with the
Yeah.
organization at large?
Yeah, that's a very, very good point. And that's exactly what I ended up delivering after those 3 months. So I have a few steps, very, very quick actually. After I spent all this time meeting with people, collecting information, it was a lot. After 3 months, you can imagine how much information I had. So the next step was to really reflect on those information. And I didn't read my notes intentionally because I really want to give my brain the space and the freedom to let ideas come back to the surface. And that is because what comes up to the surface is actually my key takeaways. And once I have my key takeaways, then I can go back to my notes and organize my notes, sort the ideas of how to basically organize those takeaways and deliverables in themes, in topics. So personally, I ended up with 4 themes, which I call a pillar. And then looking further, diving deeper into my notes, I would organize everything that I've received during those 3 months into ideas of how I can achieve this, how I can improve that. And I would sort those ideas within my pillars. And those ideas becomes initiative. And I then prioritize those initiatives um, the usual kind of matrix, what brings the most value or the less value, what's quicker or longer to implement. And when you prioritize your initiatives this way, then you have your roadmap. You know what you need to tackle first, second, third for each of the pillars. So I ended up with 4 roadmaps, one for each of my pillars. So I have a packed 12 months that I shared with my team. Say, okay, what do you feel? So they freaked out, and then they said,
I
"Yeah,
was about to ask,
business."
what did they feel, and then forget about what they felt. What did they say?
Yeah, they were actually. That's let's be true. The first people, your first change management project is to get your team on board, and then you can present to your GC and to your stakeholders. So some of my teammates were more resistant to the change, also because they've been here for so long. But eventually, they all came on board. We discussed and we made some changes. We pivoted here and there a little bit. And at the end of the day, they are already implementing the roadmap. We are already in it. Sorry. So yeah, after a bit of freaking out, change management came in place. What's in it for them? And here we go.
I love that. totally expected, I guess, but a shock every time to me. So, uh, um, I love that. You said this thing about brain space and freedom. um, before you sort of make a decision. I just recently had a conversation with a very high profile GC, and she said, Olga, decisions kill possibilities. We were talking in a
Hmm.
different context. And I think that you're kind of iterating the same thing. There is a sort of time and space to collect and reflect, and you need that time before you make a decision, because decisions, good or bad, also close doors and take away those possibilities. I'm just curious. I guess theoretically, all that makes sense. Practically, how do you have the discipline? Because many of us, yours truly included, go straight into decision, um, almost without missing a bit. So how do you stay disciplined to give yourself that brain space and freedom to make a good decision?
It's a life lesson. I learned it the hard way. I've made very rash decisions in my life, professionally and personally, and they were not good. So I promised myself every single time that the next time I would take time to think it through. And I guess let's call it wisdom.
Still working on that one, Laurie. Still working.
I think the idea is really to get the control of your thoughts, saying, I don't know here, but back in France, there is this saying that says that before speaking, you need to turn your tongue 7 times in your mouth because it gives you time to think about what you're going to say. And that's actually the same when you're about to make a decision. When you know that you're about to make a decision, impose to yourself to take like 1 hour before you're going to communicate it. Even if it's in your mind, take 1 hour before you communicate on it. And within this hour, your brain will keep working for you. That's your best ally. So force yourself, put a rule that works for you before communicating an idea or a decision. Take 1 hour.
I love that. I will wrap my mind around the tongue thing, but the hour I totally get. I totally get the hour. I'm sure it sounds better in French.
Yeah, possibly.
No, I am well. As someone who speaks multiple languages, sometimes when I do a literal translation,
It
uh,
doesn't work that much. Yeah.
it does. It's an idiom, right? It's not meant to be, but the 1 hour is universal. I get that one. Really cool. I love that. So maybe a last question from, well, actually second to last, because I always ask, and I'm gonna flag this for you because I'm gonna ask you this: what is the takeaway for the listeners? But before I get there, what is your next mountain? Like, what is your next project? What are you working on today? And how are you convincing stakeholders to join you on the mission and be successful?
Wow. There's a lot of things. I told you I have 4 pillars, and each pillar has its own roadmap. So I have a lot of things on the go at the same time. But I think my biggest challenge right now, and also the most exciting, is around the digital transformation of the law department, and compliance and government relations. I don't want to rush once again, with um, into buying a system, into buying a solution. First, because I still need time to understand the actual needs, um, and second, because I'm afraid I'm going to make the wrong decision, and that's long decisions. It's going to have a big impact and a financial impact as well. So I want to take my time, and I'm also a believer of, it has to be simple as possible for the users. It has to be user friendly and easy. And I feel like that asking my lawyers who've been doing the same thing for 20 years to learn a completely new system might not be the best way to go for my special situation. It might be for like younger companies, but Manulife is 130 years old. And some of the lawyers, I think I don't have a week without celebrating a 15, 20, 30-year anniversary within the company. So that's the kind of profile that are not the most open to change. I'm not saying that they are not willing to, because a lot of them are, but the practicalities of going through change might be complicated. So I'm looking into solutions of that would improve or be built on what we already have in house instead of buying something new. So that requires a lot of strategic partnership with our IT department, especially. And I love that because they love to build, they love to innovate, and they don't have the opportunity to do that much within the company. So that's actually easy for me to get them on board because I offer them out of the box opportunities.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Really great insights. I thoroughly enjoyed the insights of not rushing into action and sort of managing yourself through the process of making a good decision and allowing the space. I think it's critical, especially in something like legal ops. You are there to provide efficiencies, and there's a lot of pressure for you to be efficient and get to the answer sooner.
Mm-hmm.
But it is a massive, like changing systems is a massive investment. It has massive implications.
Yeah.
So the cost of a wrong decision is actually not that small. And I really like the framework you discussed of taking your time, prioritizing quality versus speed. Because in nature, speed and quality are inversely related, and unless you want to challenge the laws of the universe, so to speak, you really need to pick one or the other depending on the problem. And I love that focus on quality, and first, and speed maybe secondary, and managing everyone's expectations and yourself first and foremost in that process. Um, we talked about a lot of things. We're sadly coming to the end, and I want to be really grateful. I'm really thankful that you're here, and I'm grateful that you found time. What is the one thing, you mentioned a lot of things that you want folks who listen to this presentation, to this discussion, what would you like them to take if they take nothing else? What is the one thing you want them to take away?
I think society is expecting people to be overachievers. You're only successful if you overachieve. And a lot of people translate that into the fact that they have to demonstrate their value and to deliver right away, as soon as possible, as much as possible. And I would actually argue the exact opposite. In order to be impactful in what you do, in what you deliver, you need to be on point, and you need to really, really understand what are the actual needs of your company and your stakeholders. Not necessarily what they tell you they want, but what they actually need. And to do that, you need time. So if you do not take the time to understand that, to position yourself as the one who will be strategic in answering their needs, you will increase your risks of failure. So I would say, don't listen to anybody who's telling you, oh my God, you didn't do anything yet, but you've been in the job for months already, or 2 months, or 3 months. Don't listen to them, because I don't think that's good advice, first. And my personal experience has demonstrated that taking the time is actually amazing, because it allows you to be extremely impactful in when you deliver. In my own example, where I did deliver on the 100-day mark to my GC, and he was blown away. He was really impressed by the quality and the accuracy of what I delivered. And the only reason I was able to do that is because I spent time listening actively, challenging as well the status quo sometimes. And this is how I did it. And I'm not saying that's the magic recipe, because I don't think there is. And there are plenty of situations it might not be possible in the first place. But I do believe that generally, that is what works best. So that's my recommendation, and that's my takeaway, and I hope it's going to help some of you today.
Oh, I am so sure that it's helpful and liberating, really liberating. So thank you for openly talking about it and sharing your frameworks and thoughts and experiences. I thoroughly enjoyed catching up with you. I guess as in person as we could possibly catch up, given how far away we are. So thank you so much for joining me for this important conversation.
My pleasure, really. And I see you. You are going to be at the CGI o'clock in Vegas?
Oh, will I be at CGI?
Okay, it's a date.
More to come. I will definitely be at CGI, and I am presenting and doing a few things there.
Nice.
So I hope all of you who listen to this will join us at CGI, which is Clock.
Yep.
And it's gonna be in Las Vegas, and it's gonna be fun. And yes, this year I will be active because last year I had COVID. And this year I will be making up for the lost year, and it will be a big one. With that in mind, bye everyone.
Bye, thank you.
Thank you for stopping by. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Notes to My Legal Self. Know someone who'd make a great guest? Let us know. Self-nominations are encouraged. They are an act of courage. Remember, the future of law is bright. Enjoy your in-house practice. It's an adventure of a lifetime. See you soon.